If you've ever felt like you're living a life that wasn't quite yours or carrying burdens you didn't choose, then you're in the right place. I'm Barbie Wolf, and this is Unboxing Barbie, the podcast for cycle breakers and comrades with our boots on the ground. It's a space for honest conversations about healing, faith, and becoming who we are always meant to be. Let's unpack some things together. So I was reading Leviticus the other day, and today actually, because I do that. But this episode actually started a couple of days ago. I was in chapter 27. I wasn't expecting much really to come out of my reading. So you can imagine my surprise at being stirred by a chapter title. Like this actually stopped me at the bold text, funding the sanctuary. And immediately I had a revelation, I guess. It was one of those moments where a concept just lands on you fully formed. I've always known that I'm the sanctuary of my relationship with God. What's even funnier is that today my New Testament reading was in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, reminding me again, you are not your own. You are bought with a price. What caused me to make notes in my Bible margin and open a new chat with an LLM was my body is the sanctuary and it is my actual job to fund it. And I don't mean fund it like buying it nice things. I mean keeping the lights on, keeping the structure sound. For the longest time, I've had this complicated relationship with the term self-care. It always felt a little indulgent to me. And due to restrictive income, due to like my own complications in my physical body, it's out of reach, most forms of self care, because a massage isn't something I can afford right now, even though my body needs it. Getting a manicure is out of reach financially, even though my body needs it. I trade services to get my hair done. And so I can go every 6 weeks, but my life is a complicated crapshoot. And so I rarely schedule it, even though my body needs it. So then I think, okay, do what you can with what you have. Like it's all bubble baths and treating yourself. But when I read that phrase, funding the sanctuary, it shifted things in my internal thought process. It moved me from like indulgence to maintenance. I started thinking about what that actually looks like in my life. And it isn't glamorous. It looks like getting 7.5 hours of sleep minimum. It looks like drinking half my body weight in water in ounces. It means taking my meds on time. It means moving my body for 30 minutes, even if that's just flexing my toes or breathing deeply because that's all I can do that day. It's the boring stuff. It's emptying your bladder when you actually need to go instead of holding it until it hurts because you're too busy feeding the engine that's funding the sanctuary. And so I am sure, so many of you listening who may not be reading Leviticus. You might not believe in a God who dwells in a temple. And okay, but stick with me on the word sanctuary. Even if you take the theology out of it, the truth remains. This body is the only house you will ever truly own. It's the only place where your mind, your personality, and your love can live. If the phrase funding the sanctuary feels too religious for you, then think of it as funding the ecosystem. You are the caretaker of a very rare, very specific environment. If you stop funding it, if you stop the water, the rest, the maintenance, the ecosystem collapses. And when the ecosystem collapses, nothing else can grow. So whether you're doing this for God or you're simply doing it so you can keep showing up for the people you love, the mandate is the same. We have to keep the lights on. And today I went even deeper. I was reading Numbers chapter 9 about the actual logistics of the tabernacle. And here are some facts about the tabernacle. If you don't already know, it wasn't a permanent building. It was a mobile sanctuary. The Israelites had to follow the cloud. Sometimes the cloud stayed for a year. Sometimes it stayed for 2 days. And as soon as it lifted, they had to move. So I looked into what it actually took to move that thing. My LLM taught me it was a huge coordinated military operation involving thousands of Levites. And I thought, If Levites were exhausted, dehydrated, and broken down, the sanctuary could not move. If they had let their funding slide because they thought, oh, we've been parked here for 6 months, I can slack off on my rest, they would have failed the minute the cloud lifted. And so, as I'm prone to do, I apply this to my own life, and especially about my parenting. For years, I've viewed self care as recovery. I wait until I am drained, stressed, or sick, and then I try and fill the cup just enough so I can pour it out again. It's a cycle of crash, repair, pour out, crash, repair. But Numbers 9 isn't about recovery, it's about readiness. Funding the sanctuary isn't about fixing the damage after the storm. It's about maintaining the structure so that you are ready to move when the cloud lifts or the need arises. And for those of us raising kids with trauma or complex needs, we know that that cloud moves unexpectedly. A meltdown can happen on a Tuesday morning, a medical crisis on a Friday night. And if I'm only doing care after the crisis to recover, I'm always checking the cloud. But if I'm funding the sanctuary, getting the sleep, the water, the movement as a baseline of care, then when the crisis comes or when the call comes, I'm mobile, I'm ready. So, if we wanted to take this out of the desert and into the fire station, maybe we could ask ourselves, what kind of firefighter are you being in your own life? I realized that for a lot of years, I was operating as like tier one. It was like the inmate fire crews we have here in California. I was doing the work, I was fighting the fires of parenting, of trauma, of life, but I felt a bit like a prisoner to it. I only took care of my body when I was forced to, or rested when I collapsed, just trying to survive the heat. And then maybe a few years ago, I think, I graduated probably to tier two, similar to the local station pro. I know the alarm is going to ring. I know the kids will need me. So I wake early to stay fit. I do the maintenance because you fight, you rest, you recover. It's a good cycle and it's responsible and it's still reactive. You're still waiting for the alarm to tell you what to do. This concept, though, this funding the sanctuary, being ready to move when the cloud lifts, this is like tier three, like the hotshot, the fire specialist. It's the person who isn't just waiting for the alarm. They are studying the wind. They are looking at the terrain. They are funding their body so well and with such high quality resting care that they have the mental clarity to be ahead of the fire. They aren't just surviving the crisis, they are navigating it. And then I think there's another character in this fire station. And honestly, this is the wide groove that I'm most concerned about keeping my side mirrors up. That's my therapist, Stephen, my tribal polo group. Keeping my side mirrors aligned about, and it's the fire chief. Now, on paper, the chief is the goal, right? You put in your time, you have the rank, you have the clipboard, you sit in the command vehicle while everyone else hauls the hoses. But I know some actual fire chiefs who have slid into what I call the days of delegation. They know the theory of fire, they can tell you exactly how to stay safe, they can direct the resources, but they have stopped doing the physical work themselves. They're no longer funding the sanctuary because they think their rank protects them from the heat. In my life, this looks like me making sure my kids have their snacks, their water, their sleep schedules, and their emotional support while I am running on caffeine and yesterday's lunch. Sitting in the command center of my house, sedentary and physically checked out. Those days when I'm delegating the wellness, but I'm not embodying it. And I feel like the danger of the chief is that they have the authority, but they've lost their mobility. So if fire suddenly jumps the line, like if the crisis comes directly for the command center, that day, the chief is in trouble. They aren't conditioned to move fast anymore. They've been relying on the crew to do the heavy lifting. So going back to the tabernacle, God didn't have a chief role where you got to sit in a chair and watch the Levites pack up. Even the high priest had a job to do. Even the priest had to walk. There is no retirement plan from inhabiting a body. You don't get to delegate the care of your own temple just because you're busy taking care of everyone else's. For me, I don't want to be the delegating sheep in the truck. I want to live like the specialists on the line. I want to stay ready. And there is a caveat because I want to pause and offer a massive grace-filled caveat because as I speak this into the microphone, I am currently sitting in the middle of a pretty intense physical flare-up, dealing with a delayed infusion again, an upper respiratory infection, and honestly, my life looks a lot like that chief right now. I'm sedentary. I'm delegating. But I realized today, while actually processing this episode internally and putting this into print, that there is a difference between the days of delegation and the discipline of the map. For those of us with chronic illness or in a season of physical limitation, we cannot judge the stillness. Sometimes we have to be the one in the chair. You have to be the one sitting at the map, putting the red pins where the fires are, looking at the whole picture from one spot. It's definitely not dropping duties or not tending to your ropes. That isn't checking out. That's also a way of funding the sanctuary. If your body is demanding stillness, then giving it stillness is the work. You aren't failing the mission. You are acting as the incident commander, keeping an eye on the map so the rest of the crew stays safe. So please, if you are in the chair today, not because you're avoiding the work, but because your body requires the rest, do not judge the map work. That's a vital post too. So, to my fellow cycle breakers and comrades, we talk a lot here about keeping our boots on the ground. And the facts are the facts. You cannot hold the line if the soldier is broken. Breaking generational cycles is heavy lifting. It requires stamina. It requires elite readiness. And you cannot do that work if you're stuck in the days of delegation or treating your body like a rental car you're about to crash. So this week, I want to challenge you. If you find yourself judging yourself or your self-care, you are in the position of inspector and you need to resign immediately. Instead, I would love to invite you to become the specialist. Drink the water, get the sleep, take the meds, eat the meals, because you're on a mission, and the mission needs you mobile. Your body's the only sanctuary you have. It's the only equipment you've got. Fund it like you mean it. I'm Barbie Wolf. Keep your boots on the ground. Make sure you're resting your feet and keep those toenails clipped too. I'll see you next time. Carry on, comrade.